Hi Nymfam, welcome to FPL 5 Things. Hope you've all had an amazing international break and that Game Week 12 was kind to you. Fergie and I have decided to make this segment a live stream to see how it goes. So let's get Fergie in and get on with discussing all of the top talking points ahead of Game Week 13. So hi Fergie, what's occurring buddy, how are you?
Not bad, name. I was better before Chilwell got injured last night because I did our usual podcast last night, and once again feeling quite smug, saving a transfer, looking forward to next week already, and obviously Chilwell does himself in, so hopefully he's not too bad. But yeah, that's a bit frustrating. But off the back of a big green as well after a few red arrows. So
yeah, it's been.
How was your week been?
Yeah, it's been good. It's been good. A little green arrow too, so feeling pretty happy with that. And also got the Chilwell dilemma that you have too, so that's like, not great at the moment. But you know what? We'll chat a little bit about that as we go on. But we always start off with our captaincy options. So, Game Week 13 captaincy options. Obviously, we have Salah, perma-captain. Does the fact that Southampton have been good in defence with 5 clean sheets bother you at all with that, Fergie? Or does the Norwich performance last game week and Salah just seal it for you?
Yeah, definitely, and I also think there's a lack of alternatives. I obviously think Spurs away to Burnley, so in terms of Kane and Son away to Burnley, they didn't really show an awful lot going forward against Leeds. So, I think we can skip those. Chelsea defenders, they're up against Man United. You're not sure what Man United are going to turn up. Man City up against West Ham, who obviously lost this week, but they've been performing really well. They managed to score 4 against Liverpool, so probably they're not good alternatives. Yeah. So again, I think it's just a case of Salah at Anfield is just irrepressible, and his EO again is probably going to be around 190% or something. So very boring, but he looks to be the prime option.
Yeah, he does indeed. But you know what we're like here, because we know that Salah's perma-captain pretty much most weeks. So we like to give everybody a bit of a maverick pick, just in case they're trying to play the game a little bit differently, or, just do something a bit out there, or they have separate teams that they want to, have a go at captaining anyone else. So if you had to pick a maverick pick this week, Fergie, who would it be and why?
I think Vardy against Watford, if you still hold Vardy, he hasn't been in form, but against Watford it could be a good fixture.
Yeah.
I think if Chilwell is out, then there is the potential also to maybe go with Alonso or Reece James against Man United. So United haven't been scoring many goals. No. They've been conceding a lot, so they could be a 12 or 15 pointer on the cards there too. So they would be my maverick picks. Have you got your eye on anyone else?
Yeah, I think if I had Jimenez or Hwang this game week, I could be tempted by either of them as differential captain. Norwich looked better last game week, but still defensively iffy. So, I don't think I would shy away from Salah at all. This is just literally, if we were going, bat shizzle, as you say, because the effective ownership for Salah and the captaincy is just going to be way too high. But yeah, I think if I had either of those, they'd be some consideration for me, definitely. All right, let's move on to discussion point number 2. Ollie's sacking. Do we think at this early stage that it will make United assets considerable again? What's your thoughts on all of this, Fergie?
I think if you'd have asked me last night, I would have probably said, just no and leave it. But to get that away win, I know they didn't perform very well, but they did get the win away in a very, very difficult game and kept a clean sheet for the first time in a long time as well. So I've been having a look through my plans for the coming weeks, and there's a couple of players. I don't think the fixtures mean short term. You don't really need United assets anyway, but they do get better. I think they're home to Crystal Palace game week 15. It's going to be a tough one anyway, but it's game week 16 Norwich. I think we can afford ourselves a bit of time to assess. But the players I think I'd be interested in, obviously Ronaldo. Just in terms of the fact he plays the most forward for them. He's one of the best players in the world, and if United start to click, you can see him scoring a lot of points. I'm currently looking at a kind of plan to leave my team in a flexible position to be able to get them in. So I think I've done that via maybe downgrading Son after they play Norwich in game week 15. But I also think potentially if they do tighten up at the back, there could be some really good options. I think De Gea in goal at 5 million, I think he is still, he could be a really good cheap option for those, looking to get out of the whole kind of Ramsdale, Sanchez, sort of realm. And when United play well and defend, well, bear in mind their run is incredible for a long time. They do keep a lot of clean sheets when they're playing well. So De Gea at 5 million, he could be a premium keeper, at a bargain price, and then the usual suspects then potentially of maybe Luke Shaw. I wouldn't touch with the barge pole at the moment, especially because I think I owned the first 8 games of the season. He got me like 7 points, whatever it was. But Ronaldo, I think, is the one which people should potentially look to have a plan within their team to maybe look at how to get them in. But I still think it's a wait and see. What about you, Nim? Are you clamouring to get anyone in?
No, not with Chelsea, Arsenal, Crystal Palace up next, and the next 3 that not really. Like you, I kind of game week 16. I think I'd rather wait. Yes, they did really well midweek, and I think there might be a little bit of a bounce that Ollie's gone and everyone's, really feeling it and happy about it. And those that have kind of held on to Ronaldo through all of this, I think will be rightly rewarded in the next coming weeks. But I'm kind of potentially wanting to see somebody like Greenwood playing again because he did so well for us early days. He's a potential option, Rashford, so I think I want to give it another couple of weeks myself just to know exactly who I want to go for. Not just, for the sake of, we need United assets in 16, must get them in now early. I really want to kind of give it some time, really think about who it is I want and my team structure and things like that. Wanted to ask you though, obviously as a Spurs fan and seeing that Poch is heavily tipped, what's your thoughts on that?
I think he'd be a great fit wherever he goes because I think he's such an adaptable modern manager that I think if he went to United midway through the season, the way he had Spurs playing during his period there, obviously they didn't finish off the best, but I still can't believe I still think it's the biggest managerial travesty of a sacking since the Premier League started. Personally, I couldn't believe they sacked him. Just after a run of a few bad games, especially how Spurs performed the previous season, get the Champions League final, they challenged the league for a couple of seasons on the bounce as well. So if he can do that with a Spurs team, just imagine what he could do with the United team, both in defence and in attack, because Spurs were very, very strong in both areas. So I think if he goes there, I think United have got the personnel. I just don't think they've had the leadership, the system or the structure to be able to actually get those personnel playing in a fashion which suits the Premier League at the moment. So I think if he goes there, it may take a few games for them to get going, but I also think that United will be challenging back again for the top four again straight away.
Yeah, I think so too. Jedi says, on the managerial change, we've seen this with Spurs. Their first few games have been disappointing FPL-wise. Maybe we should do the same with United. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see who jumps on early and who waits, and whether or not it'll pay off for sure. And Projwell says Southampton have been decent in defence. I rate Kyle Walker-Peters as a defender. He will be one with Salah. The overall ownership fear is there, but I think there is an upside for not captaining Salah in Game Week 13. Ooh, interesting. Okay, then. Moving on to number 4, we've discussed who we'd, think about if we went United. Oh, hang on, we're in number 3, aren't we? If we go to number United. But yeah, I think if we had the player that we own this week that's not doing very well for us, who would we ship out then, Fergie?
Well, we've already mentioned about with Chilwell. It's obviously It's not a case of him not performing at all. It's a case of him potentially being out either short term, medium term, or long term. Hopefully for him as a person and for football, you want it to be short term, but it does sometimes make decisions easier for FPL managers if we know that a player is out for over a certain amount of weeks, because if it's kind of 1 to 2 weeks, and obviously this is purely from an FPL view, it makes decisions difficult in terms of whether to hold on, or something along these lines. So news on him is going to be massive. A player, I think, and I don't own this player, he's burns me for a couple of weeks, but I think Rafinha, I think he's a fantastic player. He really is.
So
but
good.
I think Rafinha to someone like Gallagher could be a move, or to even to a 4.5 to release funds to be able to make sure that, if you haven't got 3 premium defenders at the moment, just as an example, to me, having a minimum of 3 premium defenders, and I would include Trent and Cancelo in that as 2 of them, and either one of, Chilwell, James, maybe Rudiger, or wherever else. But I would, if you don't have 3, I would move Rafinha out personally. He's quite well owned still, I think. Another player I noticed was very, very highly owned, 28%, which really surprised me, was Ben Rama still as well.
Wow,
I don't know if that's a lot of kind of casual managers in terms of, of dead teams and things, but could probably move him out as well, for a similar move.
And maybe other fires to put out as well, potentially, with Ben Rama for people. I've seen a lot of people getting rid of Diaz this week after him being dropped / rested in the last game. Would you keep hold of him at 6 million for that City defence? It's a lot of money, isn't it, to ask for somebody who isn't getting returns like some of the other premium defenders?
It is, but, obviously with recency bias, we've mentioned Trent, Cancelo, James especially. They're the 3 who are smashing it offensively at the moment. I can see that. Can see it continuing. I do think there is merit on, I personally think that Trent, Cancelo and James, for example, if you don't own one of those 3, you've got Diaz. I can understand people moving on from Diaz to James, for example. The only thing I would say, Azpilicueta has been, nursing a shoulder injury for a few weeks. He hasn't played a minute for a long time, but he was going to come on for James last night. It's just that Chilwell got injured, that he came on for Chilwell instead. That is worth monitoring, because Azpilicueta and Reece James normally do share a lot of minutes. So I wouldn't be surprised to see James maybe get some reduced minutes in the coming weeks. Not a lot, because he's obviously in the form of his life, and he's arguably, along with Salah, the 2 most informed players in the Premier League. But it is something to maybe look out for. I think the thing with Diaz, he's had his rest now, right? He will probably play every game now until the new year. You can rely on him for clean sheets. Their fixtures are fantastic. I can understand. I think the only way I would move on Diaz is if you haven't got those 3 players I mentioned about, or 2 and the 1 from Chelsea. Otherwise, if you have got them already, I'd be tempted to hold on.
Yeah. Just one more player I wanted to kind of bring up before we move on, and that's Antonio. What are your thoughts on keeping him? Because the likes of Saint Maximum and Jimenez, on the score sheet at the moment, most weeks, it hasn't been a long time since Antonio's returned, but is it long enough to want to get rid of him?
So, and we've all done this, right? We've all been burned before by taking out a player just because they haven't scored in previous weeks. I do think there is a bit of an obsession with looking at previous FPL points to determine what's going to happen in the future. I've still got Antonio, and I'm happy to hold on to him at the moment. The only way I plan to get rid of him, is if I need to for kind of a must-have player. So, if Ronaldo, for example, turns into this must-have player, I'd be happy to get rid. But I still think West Ham have looked good going forward, and I really do think I'm going to want Antonio from game week 18 onwards. So I'm a bit reluctant to maybe transfer him in and out and use 2 of my next 5 transfers on moving a player in and out. So I think if you've got the fires, I'm benching him this week, I think, and I'll probably bench him potentially against Chelsea in game week 15 as well. All the points are being scored at the moment at the back and in midfield anyway.
Will you bench him even because you have Chilwell, right? So will you bench him even with the Chilwell injury?
It purely depends what to do with Chilwell. So I think if Chilwell is injured for a long time, if we get it confirmed in the presses, I think I'd probably just move Chilwell to James. I just think it's a bit of a no-brainer there.
Absolutely.
But if he's only out for a week or 2, I might bench him. But I think Antonio is someone, because the forwards aren't really doing it at the moment, I think you can afford to bench him for these harder games and maybe move to 5-4-1 or 4-5-1. But yeah, sorry, I've probably talked enough about Antonio now. What about you, Lynn? Do you have Antonio?
I do, and I have been a little bit kind of I guess itchy on whether to get rid of him or not because of him not returning for a couple of weeks. But I'm like you, I really love that run of games that he's got coming up after these next couple, and I'm just kind of hoping that if I can be brave enough to hold on through these couple of tougher fixtures, that he will repay me for, sticking with him. Because also it's not just selling him on and that being that, I will lose a lot of money that I've gained in him as well. So if I wanted him back for those better fixtures, I just, the amount that I'd be paying back to get him back would be quite,
and they're the kind of decisions as well which really make you hate the game. You've held on to someone for so long, for 6-7 weeks, and they haven't quite returned, and then you let them go just ahead of a good run of fixtures, and then they start smashing it. It gets 4 or 5 goals in 3 or 4 games. They're the kind of decision which really, really hurt. And I just think if your team is strong enough to withstand holding Antonio, which I think my team is, even in I can afford to bench him. I do think he's worth holding on to.
Yeah. Just on that, with you saying you would be happy to bench him, Podwell says, don't rule Antonio out against City and Chelsea. West Ham will give them a game. So.
I agree with that. I do agree. I think I'll bench him because I think my other options are better. But and this is why I'm not willing to sell Antonio, because Antonio's the kind of player in terms of his physique, his build, his strength, his pace, that he give any centre half a really, really hard game. So yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, then let's move on to number 4. And as we've just discussed who we get rid of, let's chat a little bit about who we would get in ahead of game week 13. What are your thoughts on, the likes of somebody like Reguilon or Bernardo Silva? They seem to be the names on everyone's lips this game week.
Yeah, I think they're both decent options. I think Bernardo Silva he doesn't have many shots, and for 7.2 million, I think there are probably better, cheaper options. I still, I don't own Gallagher, and I wish I did, because he just looks scary every time he plays. He's so advanced. He's a fantastic footballer, and I know he's 6 million now, so definitely missed the boat on the price because he was 5.5. But I think I prefer Gallagher for his price. But then I would also go up a little bit from I think Bernardo's 7.2. I would also go up a little bit to 7.5 or 7.6 for Jota as well. I think I own Jota. I'm really pleased to own Jota. He can be quite injury prone. but playing up front for Liverpool, he got the one goal on the weekend. He should have got a second. Great save from Ramsdale to deny him a second. And he also pulled an incredible save out of Raya against Brentford as well. He's very, very advanced. Firmino is still injured, and Salah and Mane go off to the African nations at the end of December as well. So I think I would go there. Other players, like, if Chilwell is out injured, Alonso at 5.6 million looks an incredible price, absolutely amazing price. I'm even tempted to go for Alonso over James. Or definitely, maybe get them both in, just because it would have been hard to have a premium back four at 6 million plus, but you can have a premium back four with Alonso at 5.6. And just again, in terms of transfers in, I would just say, just have one eye on having the flexibility within your squad. Have a plan to be able to get to the highest priced player in the game, aside from Salah, and that has obviously been Ronaldo is up and coming. So that's the other thing. It would be, make sure you don't spread your funds too thinly amongst your players, so that you have to take a -8 or a -12 to get a Ronaldo, for example. So they're my thoughts on players in at the moment. Is there anyone else you're looking to get in, Lynn?
I think you've pretty much covered the ones that I'd be thinking about. I do like the thought of Smith Rowe up against Newcastle next.
Yeah.
I think he's looked really good, and as you say, with Gallagher kind of pushing ahead, I think maybe Emile Smith Rowe will have gone out of the spotlight a little bit. But he's been taken away nicely, and Liverpool was a really tough game for us. But I think we'll be looking to bounce back against some of the lower teams and take the points where we can. And in those games, I think that Emile Smith Rowe will be right up there for the points. So he's the only other one really that I had on my on my list to watch there for getting in. Okay, then let's move on to the fifth and final discussion point. So this might be one that we throw out to the chat in future, guys. But for this week, let's discuss investing big at the back. So I have always tended to be 3 at the back player. So anyone who's watched, my Game Week video, I discussed a little bit about this. But it's severely hampering me this season, and I'm missing out on extra defensive points. Last 2 weeks, I think I've left something like 38 points on the bench, which has just been ridiculous. So, should we be playing 4 or 5 at the back every week at the moment, Fergie? What are your thoughts?
I think it very much depends on the game week in question, and the specific fixtures. I do have an argument, I think, against going for 5 premium defenders. I think that Livramento, a lot of us bought him in for 4 million or 4.1. I think he's 4.6 now, or something crazy like that. So he's not cheap going to buy anymore, but there are other options, such as maybe Mitchell for Palace, or Nori, who can get still roughly at a very good price, very cheap price, but who are playing most weeks and do have a lot of attacking intent as well.
Rico Henry as well, 2 goals in 2 games now.
No, he is. You're right, but I think the argument for maybe going too heavy at the back is a very inflexible formation to get out of. If you do need to move out, and I do think there's a lot of recency bias again. In terms of looking at how these wing backs have performed. It's fair to say that probably these wing backs are not going to keep getting attacking returns every single game. Like Reece James is not going to score 15 goals this season and get 15 assists, right?
And the same this, people.
I know, yeah.
We'll get him in and we'll break him. So yes, that's why he's not going to make 15 goals this season.
But with the form that he's in,
yes,
and Chelsea's in, it could continue in the short term. So I think the point I'm trying to make is, I wouldn't pigeonhole myself into just what's going on at the moment, because once you do that, you have to take hits to get out of it. And back to my previous point, I wanted to get in someone like Ronaldo. There will be a point in the season where we need to shift our funds upfield. It's just all the forwards at the moment. None of the forwards are really doing anything, but they will at some point. And we don't want to end up with like a 6.5 million striker and 2 4.5s Keenan Davis and and Dane Scarlett, for example, and have this back five, and all of a sudden the clean sheet's just gone, and players get injured or players get rotated wherever else, and we're pulling junk off the bench, right? So I think 4 premiums maximum. You can play, Livramento at the 5 at the back when his fixtures are good, even though his fixtures do take a turn now. But yeah, I would leave. I think having your team in a constant state of pivot, which is, a phrase which I've used quite a lot, pivot, which I've used quite a lot this season. But I do think by having your team in that constant state of pivot, so you can move anywhere quickly, is a really underrated skill in FPL, rather than pigeonholing yourself to one team or a set of players. So are you tempted to just go kind of max out at the back anymore?
No, as I've said before, 3 at the back has always been my kind of comfort zone. And I'm already missing out on my points by having 4 premium defenders at the moment with, Chilwell, Rudiger, Cancelo and Trent. And then I'm leaving, like last week, like Rudiger on the bench, which was just insane. But I think Livramento has been so good this season that it's really been a struggle on whether to play him or not, which has caused me problems in whether or not to bench him or, one of the premium defenders as it is. So I think sticking another premium defender in where Livramento is currently, I just think I can't fathom doing that, because I then feeling like, who do I drop? And it's kind of like what you were saying. I don't feel like this is something that's going to carry its weight forward, for the rest of the season. I do feel like there's been a lot of defensive options this season. I do feel like they will continue to perform for the rest of the season. But I feel like midfielders are going to come back into the game. We've got the likes of Ronaldo now, potentially Kane under new management, Lukaku soon back from injury. So I do feel like just having this big at the back could really see you missing out, as you say, because it's hard then to take that money from the back of the park and edge it forward when some of these more forward players start performing again. It could be a bit difficult. And as I say, with the likes of Livramento and like Henry and stuff like that performing, just don't think you need to invest in that 5th midfielder spot. And it's tough enough knowing who to play there right now, so I think Reguilon looks great. I think there are some, more attacking defenders that are a bit more expensive, but yeah, I mean, it's all about your team structure, isn't it? And I think people who have done it the last 3 weeks have been rightly rewarded for it, and they've been very brave doing that, over playing some of the likes of the forwards like maybe Tony or Antonio, and it's really paid off for them. But I just wonder how much longer that will continue into the rest of the season. I think defensively, the likes of City and Chelsea will be good for the rest of the season. But I am a little bit concerned that these attacking returns may shift more forward in the coming weeks, and we'll have Christmas and we'll have rotation and things like that. So yeah, I'm not convinced. I do feel like I need to be braver with playing 4 at the back a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I do need to be convinced on going 5 at the back for sure. I don't actually know if I've ever done it, Fergie. I don't think I've ever played 5 at the back.
Oh, what?
Ever.
In one game week?
In
really?
any game week in FPL,
oh
no. I don't think so. Not by choice. I may have been, forced into it with like people coming off of a bench or something. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think I've ever chosen
but
to
then
do
we've
it.
never seen a season like this where
That's true.
Like it's changed the Premier League. If you look at how you watch football now, even Lamptey at Brighton, I think it was last week. It wasn't this week, but Lamptey had the average player positioning. He was the highest. He was the most forward player for Brighton the week before in his average position, and he's a right back. Like you look at Reece James and Chilwell and Trent, they're not just like swinging in crosses from the flank anymore. They're getting in the box. I'm sure I saw a stat that Cancelo has had an insane amount of touches in the box, like in the box. And look at Trent's last few assists. I know he crossed from a free kick or whatever it was for Mane's header, but he has been sliding the ball across the 6-yard area a few times recently. And Chilwell is he's having so many shots at the bar last week from inside the area. We've never seen anything like it, and the game is changing. We need to adapt, but. I think from this, I would say I did some research yesterday, and still the ownership of players. Trent, I think, was only. I think Trent is like 32% owned, which is still quite low for me. If you look at, like Luke Shaw was 50% owned at the start of the season, right? So Trent is only 30-odd% owned. Cancelo, Reece James are only 25% owned still.
Wow.
There's still time to get on them. They haven't got away from people in terms of ownership. If you don't own those three, or at least Trent and Cancelo, if you don't own them, I would make it a priority to get them in your team, because they are just beasting it this season. They're different breeds. They're in the wrong position in FPL almost. They're basically midfielders or forwards who get clean sheet points. They're cheat codes. I would just get on them.
Yeah, agreed. Rafiki asks, thoughts on Chu. So what do you think?
The only thing, he's obviously played magnificently well, scored last night, been in really good form. The only thing is both Werner and Lukaku are back in full training, and they play in his position, or at least Werner does, on that left-hand side. So, fantastic player. He has been a fantastic option. I think you recommended him then when both Lukaku and Werner got injured, and I poo-pooed it, in all fairness. So what did I know? I just assumed he would stay at right wing back, but no, playing in that left. I think he's a fantastic player. I do think he will lose minutes, so I wouldn't go for him moving forward. But then again, I said that a month ago when you said to get him in, I said no. So
well, there you are then, Rafiki.
Werner came on last night and scored. Lukaku was on the bench. I just think he's going to lose minutes. Yeah,
and I think this Christmas period is so congested, isn't it, that we will see some big rotation in some of these big sides. So it's going to be handy to have a bench, I think, this Christmas, because if you stick COVID on top of all of those other bits and pieces, then it could be a bit of an interesting Christmas period for FPL, that's for sure.
Agree.
Okay, that's it, you guys. That's our 5 things for Game Week 13. I hope you have an amazing game week. Let us know if you enjoyed it. Please like, sub, and hit that notification bell so you all know when we're going live next. Hopefully it'll be around this time most weeks. You can also find a link to Fergie's Twitter below, but it's a goodbye from now for me, and a goodbye from Fergie.
Goodbye all. Hope you smash the game week.
Thanks for joining me, buddy. Nymfria times Fergie out.